Hey everyone, welcome to Ask Me Monday, number 34. I am Vickie Howell. It's good to see you. Let's see what's going on with me this week. Big family news, not big family news, but big home decor news. We got a new rug for the living room, which I'm so into that I took a picture of it with my matching yarn stash because I'm a nerd like that and put it on Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram and care about such things, I am at Vickie Howell there. So please follow me there. And speaking of Instagram, I got just the loveliest comment today, and it's just kind of made my whole morning, from a woman out of Denmark. She said that she bought the Danish version of Finger Knitting Fun for her 10-year-old daughter, and her 17-year-old son actually was into one of the projects enough that his 10-year-old sister taught him how, even though he's like vehemently against crafty stuff most often. And for me, that's like, yeah, like that's a win. That's a crafty win. Whenever you can get somebody to see, obviously yarn crafts, because that's kind of my jam, but any form of like creativity in another way, or break some of those maybe misconceptions or preconceptions, that's a good day. So that's how I started my morning. Okay, so I have a couple things I want to actually demo today, but before that, if any of you are from the UK, please check out the current issue of Knitting Magazine out of the UK. They did a really nice profile of me, and they have like a special pre-order code, and then there's an excerpted pattern in there as part of the magazine. And I actually hadn't flipped through this magazine before, and you know, because I'm not in the UK. You can buy it on stands here too. I just hadn't seen it. And it's a really cool magazine. And I loved, this is totally like just by chance, but you'll notice the top, the stitch that's on the cover is very similar to the stitch in one of my designs from a book that I sent to them. So it was kind of symbiotic, which I thought was cool. So check that out if you are in the UK for sure. This week I will be doing a Clover tutorial, and they have sent me a new product to check out. It's Wonder Clips for knitting and crochet. So the regular Wonder Clips kind of look like this, or they do look like this. These are designed to handle more fabric. So I just got them. They're significantly bigger, you can see. And they can handle more fabric. So it should be cool. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make maybe a pillow or something that I need to, you know, hold pieces together. They also have, and this is kind of more appropriate for sewing if you're working with hems, although you could do it with knitting, but it's got like these little, I don't know if you can see, it'll be backwards probably, but these little marks, so it's like a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. There's measurements, little lines, so that if you were folding over and you needed a measurement, you could just clip them that way, and then you wouldn't have to measure out individually. So that should be cool. So I'm going to give those a whirl, and you can expect something to go up on my website and the Clover blog on Wednesday. So keep your peeps open for that. Tomorrow is podcast day, so there is a new episode of Craftish coming up. If you haven't subscribed to Craftish already, please do. You can do so on Stitcher or SoundCloud or iTunes. If you're not into subscribing places, you can just go to my website, vickiehowell.com. But we're going to be hearing an interview with a friend of mine that I've known forever. She's just a great person. Her name is Candy Cooper. She's a jewelry designer, and she's also the host of, or one of the hosts of the PBS show. I think it's called Hands On. It's for kids. Just a really great person, and she's really inspiring. So even if you're not a jewelry maker, just listen to hers just for general, like just good vibes. So check that out. That'll go live tomorrow. If you haven't watched the one from last week, that's got Moogly for you crocheters out there. That's Tamara Kelly. She has a lot of knowledge too. So check that out. Let's talk Wee Garter Stitch for a second. That is my book that's out just last week, and I'm going to be doing a giveaway for that a little bit later. But I wanted to also chat about a skill from there. So you can see the blanket behind me is circles, and I'm about to show you some semicircles. People are often, when you think of working a circle with yarn, it makes a lot more sense, or it's sort of more instinctual to say, oh, well, I'll just do that with crochet because there's a formula, it's pretty easy. But you can actually do it. There are a few ways to do it with knitting, but I really like using short rows, and especially garter stitch short rows, because there's no hiding of the wrap and turns at all. So you get to create these circles. I should probably, let me see if I can get closer so you can see. See, you can create circles. And what I'm going to show you in a second are some semicircles. And what I'd like to demo for you today is just how easy how easy short rows are if you're working in garter stitch. So even if you're not, these are both, that blanket is from my book, and the garland I'm about to show you is from my book. But even if in general, you just want to know how to work garter stitch short rows, or you're interested in making semicircles or circles, this is a good demo for you. After that, I'm going to be showing you a demo on how to block acrylic yarn. That was actually a viewer question. And then we'll just do a wrap up. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and flip around the camera. Make sure I didn't forget anything before I set my notes aside. So here we go. Ready? Let's flip. Okay, so you would think this many shows into it, I would not have you see my finger when I turn. I'm like a 90-year-old woman that's never used technology. Okay, so this is just a sample. It's like a mini sample, a swatch of a scallop or of a scooped garland from my book. And you can see this is a semicircle. If you look closely, it is made up with just a series of sort of pie pieces, and those are made with short rows. Here are more of these. This is a fun, just little kind of garland that you could use for a birthday party or as a decoration in a nursery. And this doesn't have to be for babies. You could do this for a party for whatever, whenever, right? But what we're focused on really is just the short row aspect of this. This was going to be a clover project. I was going to make this cool like zip, like semicircle purse. And I rolled the dice and thought there would be more yarn at the store, and they did not have it anymore. So now it is just for you to see how on a bigger scale, this is not quite a semicircle, but it's a good way for you to see how it's building slowly. I actually need one more pie piece to finish this off to be a semicircle. So what I'm going to show you is just the basic method for using short rows. You could use that to make these semicircles and circles like the blanket that I showed you before, or in any time that you're working on garter stitch and would like short rows if you're trying to add some fabric somewhere in your own designs. So let's go ahead and start with the stitches cast on. So I already cast on the stitches, and I'm going to work the first row. So to do that, for the particular pattern for the garland, it calls for this method, but this is just sort of to give you a general idea. So I'm going to start by knitting every stitch to the last stitch. I think I just accidentally dropped a stitch, but we'll go with it. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you knit continental or English method. Whatever works for you works for me. Okay, so we get to the last stitch. We're going to slip the stitch from the left needle to the right needle purlwise. So that means inserting into the front of the loop. Then I'm going to bring the yarn around and forward. And then I slip the needle back onto that left needle. And then I turn it around. And what that did, and it'll be easier to see this when I show you on build-ups, is that wrapped that stitch. And then on the way back, I would just knit all the way across. If I were working in stockinette stitch, we'd have to worry about hiding that wrap later. But the beauty of garter stitch is that because there are already bumps, those textural purl bumps, the wrap is hidden, so you never have to worry about that. Okay, so you would just work the rest of the row to the end. Actually, I'm just going to show you this next row because why not? Okay, for the next row, flip over. And these short rows are only worked on the right-sided rows. I'm going to work to a couple stitches before that wrapped stitch. Now this first time you just know that the last stitch was wrapped. It's not going to be as apparent as it will be later just because it's the end of a row, so you know there's not as much to see, and I'll show you what it looks like when you're not working at the end of the row in a second. Okay, so I'm going to slip this stitch, the next stitch, to my right hand needle, move that yarn forward again, slip the stitch back over. That's my wrap. That little maneuver I just did, flipping over, that was my turn. You can see my stitches wrapped. You see that? I tug on it, you can see how it moves. And then you would just continue working. All short rows are working fewer and fewer stitches for more rows to create extra fabric or extra height in a certain area. And by the way, if you haven't already subscribed to these videos, you came to them by chance, please go ahead and click that live subscribe button that I believe is on your screen, allegedly. I don't see it, but I think it is. Okay, you can sort of barely see. It's just starting to develop. You can see how there's this pie shape. So I'm going to pull in a piece that I've worked several rows on where it becomes much more apparent. So you can see that we've got many more rows here, or enough that you can tell the difference than we do here. These rows are shorter than these rows, right? Hence the term short rows, because you're working fewer stitches. Now you can see it becomes more apparent where you have to turn. I have 2 stitches for this particular pattern. I have 2 stitches in between each short row. And so it's pretty easy to see because that wrap creates a gap. That gap, because of the gushiness with garter stitch, magically goes away. You don't have to do anything like you need to do with other methods to hide holes or hide wrap stitches. It just could not be easier. If you've never tried short rows before, this is the method that you should give a go first, in my humble opinion. So I'm just going to show you again. You'd work the stitches until 2 before the wrap stitch. So let's see, my wrap stitch is right there. Or rather, I want 2 stitches in between, so it's really 1, 2. So this is the wrap stitch, so 2 before the wrap stitch, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to slip that purlwise, bring the yarn forward, slip it back, flip, and then knit all the stitches back. Does that make sense, everyone? Hopefully. I'm just going to pretend you're all nodding and smiling. Okay, so, and then I'm going to show you lastly for this demo, just what an entire pie would look like, piece of pie would look like. So what's happening is you'll have less and less stitches to work in between those wrap and turns, or not in between the wrap and turns, but work on the way back after you've wrapped and turned until you only have the last stitch and you knit the last stitch. And that's how you know that you're done with one pie, when you've worked all of those. And you can see that that's got a really nice clear angle. And so semicircles, where's my littler piece? Semicircles are just composed of just starting again. I would just start from the beginning, working all the way to the end, wrapping this last stitch, turning, and you would just keep going for a semicircle. Annette wants to know if there's a written tutorial. This is part of, it is in the back in my book, We Garter Stitch. It's in the back matter. Okay, so, and for a full circle, you would just, you guessed it, keep adding. You just keep going until you get to here. Ignore this border. I added a border in this. Till you get to here, and then you'd have one little seam that you'd need to seam up. And you could use, you could either cast on with a provisional cast on so that the stitches were live, and then you could do Garter Kitchener, which is also in the book, or you could just straight up just seam it. I would probably do the latter because I'm lazy like that. Okay, so that's all there is for short rows. for garter stitch knitting for making circles and semicircles. So hopefully that was helpful. And if you're into it, there are, like I said, a couple patterns and projects in Garter Stitch. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is a viewer request. Hopefully this didn't turn off while I was talking. We got a question from Maxine. She wanted to know how you kill acrylic or perform killing on acrylic. I had actually never heard it called that before. So I had to look it up myself, and I realized it's just another way of saying blocking acrylic yarn. There's probably some like magical reason that they call it that, but I don't know it at this point. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to, get your ironing board, or I just have one of these squares, and you want to pin it to the shape that you want. And the reason why blocking the same way you block wool doesn't work with acrylic is because, frankly, plastics and petrochemicals do not mold and stay the same way that natural fibers do. So you're just going to pin this, obviously if you had a shape or if you had measurements you needed to work, you would take the time and make sure that they were perfectly measured out. And then you want to take an iron and you want to fill it to the top with water. It has to be a steam iron, and you want to turn it to the highest setting there is. And you're going to steam it. But you want to make sure, so I'm going to bring in my iron, you want to make sure that you are not touching the actual yarn. It could possibly melt, ruin your project, and also ruin your iron. So you want to get just about close though, I would get an inch, half an inch away. And you kind of want to just keep going until the entire project. Oh, Christine, fun fact. She just said acrylic is killed because it can't go back to its original shape once you've gone through this process. Whereas blocking usually has to occur every time you wash. That is brilliant. Thank you, Christine. See, the more you know. Okay, so you would just continue doing that until, be careful when you're touching it. It's obviously going to be really hot, but I just wanted to make sure that it's all moist so that I know that I covered everything. And then if it's dry at all, if it's still wet, I would let it just sit there as you would regular blocking. And that's all there is to it. So if you're working with an acrylic or acrylic blend, I highly recommend this route. It's easy. I secretly sometimes do this with non-acrylic yarns. It just depends on them. You don't want to felt them. It just depends on if you're feeling lucky that day. All right, we're going to try again. All right, those are my 2 demos today. Hopefully they gave you some good information. And I'm going to take a few questions from the actual scroll right here. And then after that, I'll tell you how you can win a free copy, signed copy of my book. All right. I saw a question that said, somewhere I saw it coming. Oh, Irma says that after buying those clips, I don't know if she's talking about the new ones or the old ones at Amazon. She also found them at Walmart. That's good to know. Kathy wants to know, she's making a poncho and it calls for DK. Can I use worsted instead? Worsted and DK are different. They're about a half a stitch per inch difference. Or half a stitch per 2 centimeters. What is that? Per inch per 2.57 centimeters, 2.54. So a poncho, it's going to be smaller. It's just not it's not going to fit the same. I'd really check your gauge. It's possible you could make it work if you went up or down a needle, but I wouldn't recommend it without at least swatching and seeing what your difference is going to be. You may measure the swatch and it may be such a slight difference that you're ready to go. But just think about it. If you're getting a half a stitch difference for 1 inch and you're making a poncho that's, 38 inches across, if you multiply that half a stitch by 38, it's a significant size difference. So just swatch. That was kind of an answer, kind of a non-answer. I wouldn't recommend it, but I'm not saying you can't. Just swatch first. All right, let me see. Tina wants to know how thick the pegboard is. The pegboard behind me, the pegboard's super thin. My husband just put pieces of wood. It's like a frame behind it, pieces of wood on the top and the bottom, so that he didn't have to drill directly that into the wall. Not because we already drilled into the wall, but I needed there to be, you know, a good inch away from the wall, so that if I wanted to, so all the stuff that I hang on these hangers, you can see behind me, so that the hooks could go in without hitting the wall. So I just got the standard ones that you get at your local, you know, home improvement store, and then I painted them. The painting was kind of a pain. I'm not going to kid you. I had to go over it many, many coats. You can buy it some places already painted. If you have that option, I recommend it. All right. It looks like those are all of the main questions. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up with a chance to win signed copy of We Garter Stitch. And to do that, all you need to do is post a comment in the comment section of who you would knit for baby for, or if you would give the book for somebody else to knit for baby, then you can post that too. I just love to hear who people are knitting for. So in this feed, this actual feed, post entering to win who you'd knit for, and I'm going to pick at random. I will pick before next Ask Me Monday, and I will tell you who the winner is. For those of you that subscribe to my email list through my website, VickieHowell.com, you'll know that I'm actually giving 3 copies away through that too. So if you subscribe to my email, I'm going to do more giveaways through there. Just a little fun fact. And you can enter in both. If you've entered on that one, feel free to enter on this one too. I am ready to share some actual copies now that I have them. And for the woman that had the question about a written tutorial, it is in this section in the back where I give all kinds of information on the different skills used in this book. So that, my friends, is all I have for you today. I am headed off to do another podcast interview with a James Beard award-winning photographer, so I'm really looking forward to that, and you can expect that to be coming at you soon. Until next time, please take some time to be creative, talk about creativity, put it on the calendar. You matter, being creative matters. Breathe in, craft out. Bye.